Uh, Thank you, Dr. Vermani sir and Dr. N.K. Singh sir, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the things which I love more, or you can say that I live it. That is the chronobiology. And I'm sharing my screen. And my topic, which has been given to me, is the chronobiology of hypertension. And I will be talking basically about all the aspects which are related to the circadian rhythm of hypertension. And the we know that the clock is that thing which never stops. And all biological functions and processes are organized in time, and they are having in relation to day-night cycles, including blood pressure, heart rate, vascular reactivity, cardiac contractility, and various other homeostatic factors. They demonstrate a particular rhythm. And all these rhythms may be of various types. They may vary from few minutes, 30 seconds to 20 minutes, like biochemical oscillations, to second and minutes like calcium oscillations, to cardiac rhythm, maybe for 1 second. And they can be very, very small, like neural rhythms, 0.001 to 1 second. Or they can be very, very long, like circannual rhythms of 1 year. So the rhythms can vary to the time, but biological rhythms are known and we should respect them. We also know that human circadian time structure is there, and the various physiological mechanisms and functions are going to their peak and going to their slow at the various times. That is known and related to every system functioning in hemoglobin to gastric acid secretion. There's a time for that. The principles of ambulatory blood pressure monitoring have shown us that blood pressure, heart rate, autonomic parameters, and cardiovascular system have a characteristic and reproducible circadian pattern and daytime elevation and nocturnal decline. That is known. And on the basis of that, we say that a particular person whose blood pressure is more during daytime and goes down to the night time, and that is known as a dipper pattern or dipping pattern or dipper. The person may exhibit non-dipping pattern, and they are called as non-dippers. And it is important because it has been found that non-dippers do have some individual risk which are not related to the value of blood pressure. Similarly, one can have the reverse dipping pattern, that is during night time, instead of going down, blood pressure goes up. And this reverse dipping pattern usually seen in the autonomic dysfunctions and more in the CKD and DKD. That is very, very producing a lot of complications. Similarly, there can be the extreme dippers. Dipping may be more than normal, and that again may produce some harmful effects. So the evening blood pressure, and then the morning blood pressure, the highest is the morning one that is shown here, or there can be the lowest BP during the night time. But this all is not same in all individuals. This keep on varying, and also keep on varying the going to the time of bed. And that is important because the lowest BP is not usually at the same time in all individuals. It is related to sleep, related to our posture, not only to the time. So that is why every individual has its own ambulatory blood pressure profile. So diurnal variation, which is very well known, and there is 10% variation in ambulating humans. Usually two troughs and two peaks are there, and diurnal BP variation results primarily from cyclic physical activity, including sleep-awake cycles, as demonstrated by studies in the shift workers. And the mysterious morning surge is known, and this is also has long been recognized that serious adverse cardiovascular events we all know, including myocardial infarctions, sudden cardiac death, pulmonary embolism, limb ischemia, and aortic aneurysm rupture, all have pronounced circadian rhythmicity and reaching to a peak during the morning. That is why probably this is morning surge is called as mystical, because if it is not there, again it can produce a lot of problems. That is why it is referred as double S1, double S1. And the pathological conditions of the cardiovascular system, including hypertension, they have the rhythmic sudden cardiac death, or they all have a rhythm, including myocardial infarction, aneurysmal rupture, stroke. They have a daily rhythmic pattern. That is why the chronobiology becomes very important in the relation to hypertension. Because all the dangers of hypertension, all the complications of hypertension do follow a particular rhythmic pattern. Various cardiac events ranging from ischemia to infarction, sudden cardiac death, supraventricular, ventricular cardiac arrhythmia, they all have the particular rhythmic pattern, rhythmic preferences or time preferences. That is why knowing about the chronobiology of hypertension becomes very important. The rhythm which is there is basically maintained by the clocks, and the clocks may be central clocks and peripheral clocks. Both we know that we have a central clock, and that central clock regulates the peripheral clocks as well. And each cell do have its own clock, which is known as peripheral clock. So there is a rhythmic pattern between the central and peripheral clock. Sometimes this rhythmic pattern is disrupted, and this is known as disrupted circadian rhythm. It can occur in the brain, that is in central clock, or in the peripheral tissues in the peripheral clock. That can lead to a lot of cardiovascular diseases in both human and animal models. That has been shown. I have shown a lot of references regarding that. That is known. In addition, disruption of the circadian rhythm either in the brain or in the peripheries can lead to cardiovascular disease, and endogenous factors influenced by activity contribute to the diurnal variation, which is known. And that again is very important regarding all the mechanisms which control blood pressure, which can alter blood pressure, ranging from RAS to catecholamines and cortisol. The heritability of circadian BP and heart rate variation may reflect the heritability of these endogenous factors as well. That is why the BP variability becomes very important. And this BP variability is such important is because of the lot of complex interactions between extrinsic environmental and behavioral factors and intrinsic cardiovascular regulatory mechanisms, neural central, neural reflex, and humoral influences. They totally govern all these rhythmic BP variability. So BP variability is a known and natural characteristic of blood pressure. It is secondary to mechanism of varied nature, and it is divided for the sake of understanding into short-term and long-term variability. The subtypes of variability can be short-term variability within 24 hours, and again this can be classified into very short beat-to-beat blood pressure variability, or short within 24 hours, minute-to-minute variability, hour-to-hour variability, and day-to-night variability. Long-term blood pressure variability can be day-to-day variability from all the 7 days of a week. Blood pressure is not same, that is there, and also visit-to-visit variability. When the patient is coming to the doctor, and in every visit, blood pressure will vary, and that is called as visit-to-visit variability. So basically, short-term and long-term blood pressure variability. Short-term blood pressure variability is basically because of the activity of the baroreceptors and changing in the respiration rate and sleep pattern and the chemoreceptor mechanism. While the central and reflex autonomic modulation, reduced arterial compliance, humoral effects, rheological factors, emotional factors, behavioral influences, physical activity, sleep, and postural changes have an effect to the BP variability, which is short-term variability. Long-term variability is called day-to-day, visit-to-visit. This can also be seasonal, which becomes very important for my country, because in my country during summer, blood pressure goes down, and during winter, it rises again. So inappropriate down dosing of drugs lead to increase in nighttime BP with the hot weather reported in some studies. The mechanism of the long-term variability is not well studied. Behavioral factors are more important rather than any particular pathological mechanism, but increased arterial stiffness, poor BP control, and inconsistent office readings are the various causes of this long-term variability. This nocturnal dipping pattern, which I was talking in the beginning, is very important, and mechanisms to produce them, which are responsible for non-dipping status, may be persistence of the sympathetic drive at night, which should go down, and reduce sensitivity of the baroreceptors at night. That should not happen. And volume overload in specific conditions, and autonomic dysfunction. Among all, the autonomic dysfunction is very, very important. And in most of the diabetic individuals, this occurs because of the autonomic dysfunction. So I have summarized this whole into one slide of the BP variability, and you can very well see that the mechanisms are shown here. And for the sake of time, I will not devote much time to this again, because I have already talked about this. The only important thing is that all these variabilities and all these changes are important, because they are important to produce a lot of cardiovascular events and mortality, renal outcomes, all-cause mortality, cardiovascular events, and cardiovascular mortality, ranging from the renal to cardiovascular mortality in all, whether it is very short-term, mid-term, or long-term variability. In all, you have seen that a lot of this, all the mortality increases, subclinical organ damage is there, increased cardiovascular events are there, proteinuria and other renal outcomes are also related to that. So more blood pressure variability, more of chances of getting all these variations and all these effects. In the normal Hindi individuals, there are two troughs and two peaks, which is very well normal, and it should be there, but it is not usually found in all individuals. So the regulation of this whole rhythm is centrally and peripherally controlled, and each cardiovascular tissue or cell, including heart and aortic tissue, cardiomyocyte, vascular smooth muscle, and vascular endothelial cell, has intrinsic biological rhythm. Contributions during the process of disease progression, loss of synchronization between the internal and external stimuli can induce the cardiovascular organ damage that is responsible for, and that is why the chronobiology might be important. So non-dipping has been found to be a high risk, and high risk not only for heart failure and MI, also for stroke and left ventricular hypertrophy, deterioration of kidney function, and to end-stage renal disease. In all, non-dipping pattern is very, very important. Non-dipping hypertensive individuals were shown to have a threefold increase in adverse cardiovascular event than dipping hypertensives. That was published way back in 1994. The Osama study, the Japanese study of 1,542 Japanese people, revealed a linear relationship between the nocturnal decline of BP and cardiovascular mortality. The further evidences can be seen in the form of associated with 20% increase in the risk of cardiovascular mortality, the non-dipping pattern. The group with riser BP had the highest risk for both fatal and non-fatal stroke. That is again an important fact. Steeper surge of morning BP has been associated with an increase in intima media thickness. So steeper surge is again a risk factor. Increased inflammatory markers such as higher number of macrophages and T lymphocytes, as well as more ubiquitin proteasome, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and nuclear factor kappa B activity. They all have an association with the morning surge of BP. Pharmacological dipping produced by drugs usually given in the evening, like my own study, I have produced that and shown that the albuminuria can be reduced by giving the Ramipril in the evening and producing pharmacological dipping. So that is also under consideration. And in the HOPE study, Ramipril was administered at night, although without a direct control group, and the benefits seen were 3 times greater than predicted from previous studies. On the basis of that, I have also done one study that is published in Chronobiologica. So ABPM is required for the prediction of various cardiovascular events, and that is by studying the chronobiology of hypertension, we can predict various cardiovascular events in hypertensive individuals. This is the one graph which I want to show here, that this particular patient, that patient was a known patient of coronary artery disease and also having diabetes. And you can see here that heart rate variability is almost no variability here. Blue line, you can see almost no variability in the heart rate. So that patient, this patient was having coronary artery disease, triple vessel disease, as well as having diabetes. And you can see the blood pressure variability is not very high, but the total blood pressure, the lesser values of blood pressure are high. And the heart rate variability was very, very less. So by knowing the chronobiology of hypertension, we can predict the outcome of the patient. And in this particular case, cardiology, our team was able to predict that something very serious, because heart rate variability is almost no variability, leading to that autonomic dysfunction is at fullest, and this patient was not able to save. We were not able to save the patient. Here you can see, this is my own graph, although you can see that some of the values are going below, going above 160, but there is a good variability of heart rate. You can see the blue line, heart rate variability is maintained. So this rise in blood pressure and all 7 days, these are 7-day data, in all 7 days, when the blood pressure was more at that time, I was busy in taking classes in the time, particularly at that particular time, you can see in the around 12 to 16, and then the blood pressure goes down. So the blood pressure variability is there, but heart rate variability is also there. So this is my own data showing the
You are not audible, Dr. Verma. You are not audible.
not audible.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's okay.
Okay, fine. So in this particular patient, which was a student, you can see that blood pressure values are within normal range, and the variability is also in normal range, and heart rate variability is also good. So this is the usual presentation. For all 7 days, he was having good BSR values, and all the values were normal range. Here you can see this particular patient. He was again a patient of the triple vessel disease admitted in Lari cardiology, having a lot of variability. You can see blood pressure touching from 200 and going below to the normal range. And you can see the diastolic blood pressure going below 80 sometime, and heart rate variability not corresponding to the blood pressure variability. And again, this patient was having a lot of risk factors, and he died within 3 months. So by knowing the chronobiology of hypertension, we can predict outcome in most of the cases, but we require ABPM not for 24 hours, it requires for 7 days at least. So the conclusions are that knowing circadian rhythms in high risk groups is very, very important. And by knowing these circadian rhythms, we can predict outcome in the form of cardiac outcome and renal outcome. ABPM and heart rate variability can be a useful parameter. It can help in diagnosis, prognosis, management, and prevention of cardiac diseases. And chronotherapy can be another useful intervention in some selected cases of high-risk individuals. And by this 7-day data, we were able to show CHAT. CHAT is circadian hyperamplitude tension, and for that we require 7-day data. This CHAT, that is circadian hyperamplitude tension, is another risk factor for a stroke. And by using chronotherapy, we were able to reduce the CHAT in most of the cases, and that was possible by taking most of the drug in the evening rather in the morning. So these are some usefulness of knowing the chronobiology of hypertension. So that was what I prepared for this particular session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. There are only 1 or 2 questions. I'll just ask very shortly. Which is the best time to take antihypertensive drug, in the day or the night?
Question. Actually, I wanted that this question should be asked. Most of the recent data have suggested that all antihypertensives should be given in the evening rather than in the morning. Except some diuretics which are having a lot of diuretic effect, not indapamide, the loop diuretics can be given in the morning, except that all should be given in the evening.
Sir, the other question is that the 7 days ABPM that we are talking about is a little difficult. Do you change the arm every day? Because 7 days in the same arm would be difficult, and how practical it is?
Sir, very good question. I have, sir, I have around 15 ABPM machines in my lab, and these machines are from A&T company, Japan. They are very lightweight machines, and only one can experience when these they are fitted into the arm. You will not feel it. and in the first 24 hours, a lot of white coat effect is there. That is why if you do ABPM for 24 hours, you are not able to cut off the white coat effect. It is already there. After 24 hours, patient becomes habitual to